up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today's video, we're going to be taking a look at secondary players the Detroit Lions could still sign in free agency now that they got a little bit of cap space. So let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we're taking a look at secondary players the Lions could still target to fill out some needs this offseason. Now, I'm not saying the Lions will sign somebody for the secondary, but I have a feeling that they probably will. I don't know if they will, but I have a feeling they probably will. Definitely could come at the cornerback position. The Lions are pretty light at that spot. Safety could also use the player as well. We know they worked out DeMonte Casey, but Casey has signed with the Dallas Cowboys. Are you kidding me? Dallas? Out of all the teams, Dallas? All right, I see how it is. And also, K'Waun Williams has re-signed with the San Francisco 49ers, the slot cornerback. So those two options are off the board. But the Lions were clearly interested in filling out those positions. The question is, will they try to do it in free agency? I don't know. But there are some names out there the Lions could still be interested in, and I have a pretty nice variety in today's video. So we're going to start off with the cornerback position first, and I'm going to go through some names that the Lions could potentially still target. Now, there's more out there. There's a lot of free agents. So if they sign someone that's not on here, that's probably why, because there's a lot of guys. So I try to put on guys that I can actually see them considering, and yeah, let's just go through it. So the first guy that we have is someone that I actually had on my cornerback list before free agency kicked off, and that is Nicole Roby-Coleman. And he continues to be on this list for one of the biggest reasons, because he has ties with Aubrey Pleasant, which is where he was before last season. So last season he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's coming off of his worst season statistically. And some people are worried, hey, is this guy just a scheme guy? You know, is that why he played well? Because he was in the Rams system? Now, some of that has to do because the team he was around with the Rams was better than he was with Philadelphia. Philadelphia's defense last season was not the best. But even if it is a system thing, right, he gets to work with Aubrey Pleasant again. So wouldn't that be a great fit for the Detroit Lions? It could be. Unless they believe there's some quirks that he doesn't fit with, then I think this could be someone the Lions could target just because of the scheme fit potential, and he'd be a pretty cheap contract. I don't know if Aubrey Pleasant liked him or not. That's something that I just don't know. There might be some spiritual good luck, you know, with signing a guy like Nicole Roby-Coleman. So hear me out. So the Lions signed Tommy Lee Lewis. Remember we signed that receiver that got pushed down and there was that no call, and apparently the Saints got robbed in the playoffs? Well, we signed that guy, and we've had bad luck with the refs. So we got the whole Lions versus refs merch going on if you want to check it out. But Nicole Roby-Coleman was the guy that actually pushed Tommy Lee Lewis. He said he's watched him play 4,000 to 5,000 times. Maybe he's like good luck, as in we won't get calls on us, you know, because this could be, you know, the culture switch that we need. We think it's, you know, players that, no, that. You got to get Nicole Roby-Coleman. You got to bring in guys that have been on the good end of the referee side. That way, instead of Lions versus refs, it's Lions with refs, or yeah, Lions and refs. And it's like a happy, you know, kind of like a smiley thing. No? We can try it. I mean, hey, I'm down to try it. Like, if it works, let's do it. I'm all done. We could be singing the Gridiron Hero song together. But I can tell you this, Nicole Roby-Coleman is 29 years old. He's looking to get like a 1 year, around $2 million deal is what's projected, which is pretty cheap. And it would kind of follow the same format of what the Lions have been doing for most of the offseason. Cheap, short-term deals, fill out the roster, allow us to look and draft who we think is the best available in the draft. That way we're not forced to draft a need. And right now, the Lions could use help at corner. And Nicole Roby-Coleman could be that starting slot corner next season if he had to. He's a solid slot corner, but last season, like I said, he did struggle. However, he'd be back with Aubrey Pleasant, and, you know, he'd kind of be that veteran presence that you don't have, at least right now, in the back end, so that could help a little bit. Yes, his stats did take a step back, but he is a pretty fiery and feisty cornerback. Not the best tackler, does have some missed tackles, but when you're playing that close to the box, sometimes that can happen. So I think it's someone the Lions could still have on the radar. Maybe not, because they haven't signed him yet. You would have thought they would have already done it. They have some extra cap space now. It seems like other teams, like at least fans of other teams, are interested in him as well. But the fact that he's still available could mean that his price could be even lower than we initially thought. So we'll see. But Roby-Coleman continues to be on my list. It just seems too obvious with all the ties not to put him on here. Next player we're going to talk about is Ken Crawley. Again, we won't spend too much time on this one, because to me, Ken Crawley is kind of just like, okay, there's ties here, and that's why he's on the list. Ken Crawley's best season really came, I think, in 2017, and he was an undrafted free agent brought in by the Saints, and he was developed like crazy. I mean, they developed the heck out of this dude, and he became an extremely valuable piece for this defense. But, you know, recently his roles kind of started to really diminish with the New Orleans Saints. But there is a connection there with Aaron Glenn if you wanted to bring him back to help work in his secondary. So that's why he could be interested. He's 28 years old, 6'1", 180 pounds. He's played a lot of different spots. He could also play some special teams. He hasn't done a ton, but he's played it a little bit. So again, someone the Lions Lions could be interested in because of that reason, maybe some special teams depth. But I think the connection is the main reason that I put him on this list. Last season, through the first 5 weeks, he was the 4th highest rated cornerback in the NFL. But he was only targeted 11 times. So I think that's a great stat to kind of put up. Okay, that's where Ken Crawley is. So if they can get him back, maybe they can get him back to those glory days that he was showing in the past. Who knows? But I think the connection is the reason I have to put him on here. Okay, now that we're done with those two players, let's get to another guy, Starkey Stinard. Starkey Stinard is 29 years old, so he's not super young. And to me personally, I think Starkey Stinard would be lower on my list because of all the injuries. This is someone a couple years ago I really liked the thought of Stinard coming in, but the injuries consistently have really scared me. But if we're being honest, the Lions haven't shied away from bringing in guys with injuries. They just haven't. I mean, even this regime hasn't shied away from it, right? They brought in Brashad, they brought in guys that have had injuries, but maybe not to this extreme extent, but still could be someone the Lions potentially target. Stinard's coming from Atlanta, where he played last season. Before that, he was with the Cincinnati Bengals. And if you watch him play, he's a good corner. Like, straight up, he's a good cornerback. Most people say he's a slot, and he is a slot, but he can play outside. You need him outside, he can do it. And I watched him last season against Chicago, and I wouldn't say he was great, but he kind of held his own. You know, he's matched up against Allen Robinson. He can play all the different spots. He's not a bad cornerback. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Last 3 seasons, he's missed time. It's a very big problem. When he's on the field, he's pretty good. He last season allowed 1.02 yards per play, which is pretty low. You know, you compare guys like Buster Screen, who was like 1.46. If there's any consolation, Starkey Stinard's injury last season was a hamstring. That's how they labeled it during the season. He had a quadricep injury, but it was a hamstring that put him on IR, and it was actually that Bears game where he played really well. I think he actually made a play on the ball and it got him hurt, but everybody was dealing with hamstrings last year. Now in 2018, he missed a little bit of time, but it wasn't that serious. It was an injury, I think it's like right here. I don't even know how to, it's called a sternoclavicular. It's like this area. I have no. I think we know it. Okay, you're touching it more.
Yes, that's good. How does that feel?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, that's a 10.
Okay, and that one?
That's a 10.
All right, here we go. How about this one?
Okay, that's a 62.
Yeah.
That
would hurt, don't it?
62.
Yeah.
No idea. I don't know. But 2019, it was illness. I think it was a quadricep again. So, I mean, look, all right, last season everybody's dealing with hamstrings. Maybe you take the shot on it. Maybe you do. He's a good corner, but there's clearly injuries here. But to be honest, though, Lions haven't shied away from bringing in guys with injuries. We've seen Brashad Perriman, and you know they've done it. So maybe it's not impossible to think the Lions can sign someone with injury past. We've seen it. Got good size. He's a solid tackler. He's versatile, and he's projected to get somewhere around like two years, $8 million. Which I think if I was going to sign him, I'd be like, okay, let's knock that down a little bit. Like the Lions may have the money now, but let's knock that price tag down a little bit. Why? Because you have had some injuries. Okay, especially if I'm going to sign it to a 2-year deal. I'd probably sign it to a 1-year deal. But if you're going to go 2 years, and I'm pushing that price tag down, baby. Okay, the next player that we have is someone that I don't know if this fits the fill out the slot role need, but this might be a stretch a little bit, but I think he fit the scheme well. And this is Garron Conley. Now, Garron Conley did not play at all last season. He had an ankle injury, went on IR, missed the entire season. Dang, that's tough. But, and again, this one's going to be a stretch. Some people are thinking, man, he's a bust. Don't get him. Well, he's a former first-round pick that went to the Raiders, and he really struggled with the Raiders, really struggled. And they moved it, and so the Texans went out, they traded for him. They brought in Garron Conley, and he looked so much better. So much better with the Texans. I mean, his numbers were, day and night. Day and night? Day and night. Numbers were night and day better with the Houston Texans. In the 8 games he played with the Texans last season, 52.2% completion percentage, 87.1 pass rating, and only 2 touchdowns. And he hasn't missed that much time. He's an okay tackler. He's a pretty solid tackler as well. See, when I watched Garron Conley, you can tell that it was so much better for him to change schemes last season. The Texans, it would have been great to see him last season, but honestly, because of the injury, it may have pushed his price down because we didn't see that much of him in that scheme. But when we did see him with the Houston Texans, he was so much better. Stats say that, but also just watching him says that. He, when targeted, was like a 22.2% pass breakup rate, which was second in the NFL. But what'd they do? Well, they had a man-heavy defense that allowed him to get up and press. Okay, now he played a lot of outside corner, which the Lions would have to figure out that. But you can never have too much competition, right? And the fact that he's coming off an injury, not consistent injuries, it's just 1 year where he missed the entire season. It's not like the Nard where it's every year. It's like, okay, you missed the entire season. That stinks. But we've seen you in a man-heavy scheme, and I expect the Lions to be that next season. So I'm looking for man corners. I think he fits that role. The question is, can he play a lot of slot? And also, how well would he fit in the scheme? I think he'd fit well. It would definitely be a risk, though. But the Lions, it's projected that he's getting somewhere around a 1 year, $2.5 million deal. I could see giving him that. I could see taking that chance and to see if it happens, to see if he can make it work. Because he's only 25 years old. but at the same time, maybe the Lions don't go that route. We'll see. The next player I have on this list is Mackenzie Alexander. Mackenzie Alexander was with the Minnesota Vikings to start his career. He is only 27 years old. The Vikings, he was one of their better corners, more reliable corners. In his last season there, he was the best corner for the Minnesota Vikings. So then he went to Cincinnati last year, and he still was solid. Look at his numbers over the last 3 seasons, right? 82.3 pass rating, 84.3 pass rating, 82.1 pass rating, 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. I mean, those are strong numbers. And last season was the first time in the last 3 years that he's given up over 10 yards per completion. He is through and through, he's a slot cornerback. And that's what the Lions kind of need here. Now, he's projected to get about a 2-year, $6 million deal. 2 years may shy the Lions away, and it may shy him away personally. But if the Lions could snag him on a 1-year deal, you could go longer if you wanted to. I have a feeling Lions will continue to go the route they're going of cheaper deals, 1 year, short term. That way they build through the draft, not free agency. I think this could be something the Lions do. You know, they can set his contract up where there's not a lot of dead money if they want to get out. That would be an option for him. And I think Mackenzie Alexander, apparently I've heard the Vikings have an offer out there for him, but he hasn't accepted yet. So maybe he's just waiting for that call from old Dan Campbell so he can go back at his former team. I'd be good with that. Mackenzie Alexander could fill that hole really well at slot. And finally, actually not finally, I have an honorable mention, but the last one we have is TJ Carrey from Indianapolis. He's 30 years old. So he's not the youngest guy in the world. This would be the definition of cheap, 1-year deal, fill out a spot we need, and that would be slot. He's a depth corner that last season on 42 targets only allowed an 80.2 pass rating. Pretty impressive. Expected to get a 1-year, $1 to $1.2 million deal. Now, I think what really sold me on putting him on this list is the fact that the Saints brought him in for a visit. Now, I know Aaron Glenn's not there anymore, but clearly there's something that they saw about his scheme fit. Now, they didn't sign it, but there's clearly something they saw about his scheme fit. And this was pretty recent. So it's someone that the Lions could also have their eyes on. Aaron Glenn could. Now, there's also the connection that John Dorsey, when he was the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, was there when they brought in TJ Carrey to the Cleveland Browns. So there's 2 kind of connections going on. Somewhat, well, maybe not 2, but there's at least that connection in-house for Detroit right now. And it's just one of those deals where, hey, you bring him in, super cheap deal. He could play that slot position, or he could be more depth if someone else wins it, but he's at least just a safety blanket, right? That's what he'd be. Safety blanket, extremely cheap, and it would follow the mold of what the Lions have been doing recently. Ask me, I think TJ Carrey could arguably be the best option for the Detroit Lions out there in terms of, you know, look, he's got the health. He's not the youngest. That's really the only major knock here. He's not the youngest. He's 30 years old, but that's all the Lions could need is just a 1-year deal. If the price is where it is, he's got the numbers to back it up. He's a very good tackler. I mean, he has the things that I think you're looking for, and he can fill out the spot that you need. So that's why I put him on here. And now the honorable mention is probably going to be more of a stretch, but it's Brian Poole. Yeah, probably more of a stretch for this one. He is from the New York Jets, and with the Jets, he's been one of the best graded corners in the last few years. And again, he's playing for the Jets. Now, he's projected to get about $4 million a year, which would probably push his price range too far for us because I think the Lions, like I said, they don't want, I don't think, to go long-term free agency. They want to draft, and they want to re-sign those guys. Get Poole's price down because he's still available, then maybe this is an option. But I think the Lions, and that's why I put him as an honorable mention, because he's a good corner. And he's someone that, yeah, he's 28 years old. Maybe for the next 2 or 3 seasons, you could lock him up. Poole checks a lot of the on-field boxes. It's really the question of a contract here because he's a phenomenal tackler. He's got tremendous size. He's 213 pounds to play the nickel spot. He's versatile because of that. He can line up like a linebacker if you need him to. He could kind of do it all. And in the Jets defense that was really bad, he was reliable. He was graded out as the 11th best cornerback in the league last season. Okay, this guy's legit. The contract would be the biggest question with Brian. He had a shoulder injury last season, which made him miss half the season, so he would have to be coming back for that. I put him as on much because he's been really good with the Jets. Just don't know if it's something the Lions really actual target. So those are some corners. Again, there's a lot out there, so they could sign someone else, but those are some that I think the Lions could sign, you know, just prediction, I guess, wise. Now we'll move on to the safety position. The first guy we have is Malik Hooker. These ones will kind of fly through. We've talked about these a lot. Malik Hooker is coming from the Indianapolis Colts. They declined his 5th-year deal option, and they really waited till the last second to decline that option. They really struggled with it. It was like $6.7 million. It's a former first-round pick. Secondly, he's young, and he has good size. The thing is, he hasn't been great. 2018 was his best season. And really, you know, he graded out really well that year. Since then, he's just been okay. You know, that's kind of what he's been. But the thought process here is that, okay, like he was coming out of the draft, the best role for him would be playing single high, free safety, deep safety. That would be his best role because he's got great range and he makes plays in the back end. Putting him in, you know, situations where he's man-to-man, where he's playing a nickel, like that kind of thing, he's not the best at that. Putting him in the box, not his thing. But for the Lions, I feel like Walker and Will, unless they draft someone else, and they probably could, but at least those 2 guys will probably be more of that role. I think the Lions need a deep free safety, which is why they brought in KZ. Like Malik Hooker is just battling with, can I find consistency as a player? It's can I find consistency to finding my way on the field? I mean, he's had injuries every single year, right? He's had an ACL tear. He's had hip strains. He's had foot injuries, meniscus tear, hip tear, groin injuries. I mean, he's had it all. And when you look at Hooker, he did play 14 games in 2018 and 13 games in 2019. So that's a good sign about, hey, can I play in the field? I think he could if he was allowed to play single high. And secondly, can he be healthy? Because I mean, yeah, you got to be available. And we know the potential's there. Let's see what you can do. And they kind of did a similar thing, I guess, with Anzalone. They're just not the obvious ties. So it's not my top option, but it is a solid. I wouldn't be mad if they tried it. All these are projected to be pretty cheap. Next up, Trey Boston. Trey Boston's been a guy that I've been high on really for a while now. Once he was released, I was like, dude, the Lions got to target this guy. Trey Boston's 28 years old, and I just think he fits perfectly. I think he fits the scheme extremely well. You look at last season, you say, well, he struggled. Well, he struggled. He was in the wrong scheme. They tried to play him in the box. They tried to play him, more up near the line of scrimmage, which isn't his role. He's not a strong safety. He's a deep free safety. And you look at before that, if you compare his numbers when he was a deep free safety to Marcus Williams' numbers, who got this huge tag by the Saints, his numbers were arguably better. His numbers were arguably better in coverage. And it's crazy, but that's what he is. He's a deep coverage safety that's a ball hawk in the back end, that's willing to come down and make plays on the football. I know he's not the youngest guy, but for the Lions, again, I don't think they're looking for a long-term deal. So 1 to 2 years, boom, you sign him. You can draft someone this year or next year, and he can eventually take that rollover. But you don't have any vets in the back end. You don't have any ball hawks in the back end. It would immediately be that. Plus, he has a tie with Anthony Lynn, and that was his best season. I think he had 5 interceptions. If you want more detail on this, you can. I have a video on it, but he signed to a 3-year, $18 million deal a year before he was released. But he was released because they brought a new DC in. He didn't fit the scheme anymore. He didn't play as well, so they released him. Not because he just all of a sudden wasn't good. He was signed as a big deal for a different scheme, but that's what happens when you change coaching staff, right? We've had that happen before. But I think this would be an opportunity for Lions to get someone that's way cheaper than what his price should be. Next up, we have Xavier Woods. Now, Xavier Woods, he was going to be on my safety list this offseason. He's 25 years old. You watch him, he kind of splits between free safety and then he'll line up at strong safety. He just goes back and forth, back and forth. And for the Lions, that could be something that intrigues them. He's young. He's only 25 years old. The only reason I didn't put him on my list back and before free agency started because he's like, what do you expect us to give 100% every play? You can't expect us to do that. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of awkward. That's not good. Now, I know Dallas is kind of going through some things. They're probably getting annoyed with some of the comments. That's the reason that I didn't have him on there. Plus, he's not just a free safety. He's not just a ball hawk, but the Lions may like that versatility. They may be excited about that. And he's still young. His price may be a little bit high, maybe a little bit higher than Trey Boston, Malik Hooker, but he's someone the Lions could again target. We'll give you a test a year, and then we like you, we're going to re-sign you. That could be what it is. But and that could be the case with Woods, and it could be the case with Malik Hooker. And then finally, I thought I'd just go one honorable mention here, and this is Jalen Watkins. I don't think he's signed. I can't tell. I don't think he's signed, though. This isn't someone that's going to probably play safety for you, but he's technically a safety. He's played a lot of different spots, but he's mainly a special teams guy that has connections with Anthony Lynn and Dave Phipp. So, that's kind of what that is. He's a safety, though, so yeah. Lions going to sign any of those guys? Let me know. Let me know, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.